Hi, I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. As always, thank you for joining us this week. So my motivational quote today is by Denis Waitley, and he says, "Never become so much of an expert that you stop gaining expertise. View life as a continuous learning experience." So I pose the question to you. Are you an expert in your field? And is being an expert enough? Perhaps the real question is, based on your expertise, how are you influencing and impacting those around you? Now, do you inspire others to create change in their life and maybe help guide them on their journey to becoming an expert too? Well, this is a big topic and an important one, and my guest today is Divya Parekh, and we're going to discuss her book, Expert to Influencer: How to Position Yourself for Meaningful Impact. Now, Divya is going to share some tips and strategies to move us from that expert to influencer and why this differentiation is really, really important. Now, Divya is an in-demand motivational speaker, a leading business relationship and leadership coach, and an Amazon best-selling author. Now, her new bestseller, one of her new bestsellers, is called The Entrepreneur's Garden: 9 Essential Relationships to Cultivating a Wildly Successful Business. We can all use that as well. This book serves as the foundation for many leaders in business and other organizations. And then in addition to that, she has 8 other international #1 best-selling books. One more thing I want to tell you about Divya. She's guided so many entrepreneurs, CEOs, and many management personnel into realizing their goals and reaching to the next level of accomplishment. Now, she accomplishes this through her individual coaching sessions, leadership talks, which she's in demand for, and of course, her workshops. So Divya, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Oh, thank you, Connie, for having me. It's such a joy and privilege to be here with you.
Oh, I love our conversations. I think, is this your second or third time on the show? I don't even remember now.
I just feel so connected to you that it's always such a joy.
It really is. And we always have these amazing conversations that I think are impacting leaders across the world today. This is a very relevant topic for us to discuss. So my first question is, that word expert to influencer, what does that stand for? Can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So first of all, let me kind of share that people play at different levels. So you can play at a level of an amateur, you can play at a level of pro, and that's a sports analogy. Now let's take a look at from a information perspective. So many people have access to information and they have a lot of information. And yet, when you have that information and when you're processing it, it turns into wisdom. And prior to coming into wisdom, there is that piece that it turns into knowledge. So you have information, becomes knowledge, and that knowledge becomes into wisdom. And the reason I'm going backwards is that as an expert, so many times what happens is that you may have that knowledge, but are you sharing it out with people? Knowledge is something that, okay, I'm good at it, I've got the expertise, I'm going and teaching people. But the key is there's an extension. Are we doing anything for greater good? Are we just kind of happy in the sphere we are in? And so many times it also happens is that there are so many good experts who are like these hidden gems in wilderness that nobody knows about. So there are 2 different aspects to it. One is the level of your knowledge and that desire. So it's, the key is that 2 intersections. So one intersection is that you have this beautiful knowledge and expertise and you're helping people already. And the second is that, are you helping enough people? So it's not just enough to have that influence on people in your small sphere of circle, but it's not only enough to have that impact on a few. What I'm bringing and what I'm talking about is that intersection of bringing your inspiration and your impact and your knowledge and wisdom together and helping the humanity, helping more. And I say, why not?
It's true. And so you're talking about good is the enemy of great, right? So we're good, we're making a living, we're impacting those in our small orbit, and that's wonderful, and that's all great. Can we go from that good to that level of great? And did I understand that right? That's really what we're talking about, is just exploding that wisdom, that knowledge, and just getting it out to the world, because so many of us are hidden gems.
Absolutely. And also, the second aspect is that you may have the expertise, but do people know? And what you're doing is that if your knowledge can impact people and if it can make their lives better, and if you're not getting out there, if you're not getting your word out there, so basically you're doing a disservice from helping other people. And a lot of people have asked me this question, that why do you say that, why is your subtitle, how to position yourself for meaningful impact? So I'm not talking about your why. You already have it. If you're an expert, if you're an entrepreneur, and if you're out there in the field of serving other people, you already have your why, you have your passion, and that's the reason you got into this, in the profession, what you are doing. Now, the key is that when I talk about meaningful impact is that, making a difference at a much larger scale. And even when you're making a difference to that one person, how meaningful is it? Is it just for a short term, or are you creating a shift that is bringing that lasting change? I'm not talking short term. I'm talking here long term, because so many people forget about the long term investment and long term gains for a short term gratification.
Yeah. Well, that's our society, right? We live for the short term. I'm hungry, I ate a cookie, instead of saying, I'm hungry, let me have a piece of fruit. It's that instant, quick fix, automatic. And you're right, we have to. And I like how you said that if we're not sharing our expertise on this grander scale, whatever that means to who's ever listening, it's a disservice. And I just never thought of it that way, because we always think, how can I serve the people that I do business with, right? How can I serve for me? How can I serve my clients to that nth degree, to be the biggest impact for them? And if I don't do that, it's really a disservice to them. We look at it as, well, I'm getting paid for it. Okay, that's great. You're making a living at something you love. Yay for you. But now how can you provide that service on a grander scale? And I like how you said that, truly make a meaningful impact, not just for today, but bam, really blow it out for that long-term impact. And I have a question for you, because this I know is a big one, not only for entrepreneurs, but also for our corporate people who are listening, who are CEOs and other leaders out in the community. How is social media an influencer different from your definition that we just discussed about an influencer, or is there no difference? You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes it can blend and it can be one and all, and sometimes it cannot be. And that's one of the points I definitely want to bring across, is that there is no black and white. There's multiple shades of gray. Even if you're taking a look at the rainbow, just the other day, rain was pouring, and then the rain disappeared, sun came out, and there were double rainbows, and it was not distinct. The colors were merged, and you could still see the different colors. So the thing is that, there are some social media influencers that could be only about getting the likes. It could only be about, how should I say, the number of followers, that, okay, you know what, I've got 100,000 followers, it's great. But then think about it. Are you making that meaningful impact? And to me, social media influencers is just not in numbers, but it's also about changing the thinking for the better, changing the thinking for greater good. So I'm just going to take one example, that there may be a lot of celebrities, who put out a post about a product, and then everybody goes and buys that product. So yes, it's great, fantastic, everybody deserves to live the lifestyle they deserve, and go ahead and do that. I have got no issues or problems with it. But at the same token, think about it. Yes, it's great, you're endorsing products, and at the same time, if you could say, how about let's today, just go and find one good thing in our lives, and let's post it here. So this whole philosophy, this whole, I even call it up to a point as collective ego, our collective hubris. So for example, one of the collective hubris is, looking good. And of course, that goes to me too. Like, like when I'm showing up, yes, I'm not going in painting the whole on my face and everything, but still, I'm showing up decent and how I'm showing up, because that's what matters, because that's what the perception is. And let's take a look at the collective ego and the collective hubris that I'm talking about is that we should look good. We should behave in a certain manner, we should be healthy. We should eat organic. So why not? We have got so many trends going. What if we were to bring in trends of humanity values? Just humanistic values, just being, we all are human beings. There's no doubt about it. But being a human is so tough. What if we were to say that, like just for today, all we are going to do is look for positive things in my life. And the reason I'm emphasizing on this is because, if you go and look at the World Health Organization, the mental illness is going to be disease of burden for the whole world. I'm not just talking about one. I come from a science background, and to me, numbers matter. And recently a report was released that loneliness is becoming one of the major issues. There are so many people, like, in their 70s or in their 60s, their only contact with friends and families maybe once a month. So there are a lot of single families that are going out there, folks. And from that, a lot of other issues arise. So if we, rather than treating the symptoms, if we were to come together and become as collective community with a connectivity, then so many of these things, that we go and have that measured response at the end of the chain. What if we were to catch it young while it was a sapling, and then make its roots strong and bring that humanity and connectivity back? We would not be seeing so many problems. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and the tweets that go out, people are, and I really challenge our listeners today, Divya, to start to hear their own words coming out of their mouth, their own thoughts that they're having daily, but start to really listen to what those around you are saying. Most of our communication, most of the words coming out of our mouth, most of the dialogue, sentences, whatever it is, they're negative. And you'll hear the words, I can't do that. I have to decide. Not should I choose? Let me choose. It's always, let me decide what's the lesser of the evils. So these are the kinds of things I think we hear every day. It's negative, and we get caught up in that as a collective. I like how you said that we roll and create more negative and more negative. It's a snowball effect. So we're saying, or what you're saying is, let's flip that. Let's create the snowball for humanity from this collective consciousness in a positive. Start to choose our words more wisely. Start to treat each other with respect. And the mental health, my partner and I, we're doing some, she's a therapist, so she has that background, but we're really digging in because unfortunately the statistics are showing our corporate environments and even as small business owners are being affected by mental health. And when you say mental health, we're not even saying the schizophrenia, the mental health of loneliness, the mental health that we're using drinking or supplements, like a Prozac or something to feel good because we're lonely, we're sad. Again, because of this whole negative mantra that's going on. And I don't think it's just the United States. I think it's throughout the country, throughout the world. It's really sad. So now I pose to you, people are listening. First question, Divya, is why should I care? And number two, I'm one person. How do I create an impact to this grand scale that you guys are talking about?
Why should you care? Think about it. If you live with mindfulness, and I'm not saying that you go join a Tibet monastery. I've not joined, and I'm not perfect. And as you say, that good is the enemy of great. So I'm not asking you to be this masterful piece or being great. It's just about taking that little step every single day. And why should you care? Because this is the world we are creating. And I'm sure that even though, let's say, you're single, you don't have kids, if you're young, you have rest of your lives ahead of you. And also, why should you care is that just for your own mental health. I do not recall the name. It starts with David. A neuroscientist has done a study, and that shows that one section of the brain that brings happiness, it's like one whole circuit is devoted to compassion and generosity. So now what we are doing is we are going against what we are built to do. And there are also studies that show that, we have that genetically intrinsic about collaboration. And also, think about it, even though it's technology, what's happening is people are warming to Facebook groups or to forums. So people are seeking connection. So that's what your whining for is. It's that connectivity that when you do something good for somebody else, you'll feel good. I guarantee that. And okay, if you don't want to do something for someone else. So that's the reason why should you care? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. So now how can people, I care, right? Let's say people are going, well, I do care. Of course I care. How can me, one little person, affect this cumulative, ginormous kind of consciousness that we're talking about?
So first of all, let me tell you is that what's personal is universal, folks. And when I talk about ginormous is that, let's just kind of break it down. So we talked about why should you care? Because it's your good health, you'll have a better life, the quality of lifestyle will increase, and also it's going to help your brain, so it's also going to help you have a good old age. And whether we want to acknowledge or not, old age does come and it brings with its own
issues.
Yes, it brings, I did not want to say that it brings like dire things or anything like that, but yes, it has its own pros and cons with it.
Sure.
Old age brings wisdom that allows you to be more happier, but at the same time it brings health issues and the declining body capacities and mental capacities. So we talked about that, why you should care. Now the second thing is that I'm going to share another study with you. Happiness is contagious, folks, and it goes up to, I think so, like 3 degrees. So if you're happy, let's say you're just walking on the trail. You don't have to do anything. No money, no time, no energy spent on anyone, and yet you can make a difference. So let me share a story with you. There was this one American gentleman. He was traveling from US to go to Japan, and it was his first time there. This is probably a couple of decades back. I'd read the story in Reader's Digest. And people were not as familiar, and the diversity was not as mainstream as it is today. And he was very, very nervous. And of course, he was under a lot of pressure through his boss to close the deal. And now what happens is that there's a delay in his flight, and he was told that Japanese are very, very punctual. They like people to be punctual. And he had left a day earlier, but even though he had left a day earlier, still things happened in such a way that he arrived late. And now he gets out of the airport. Of course, he's frazzled. He hasn't had time to shave and all that. He barely shaved and he's running late. So his mental situation is not so good. He's frazzled and he's anxious, and he gets into a cab and he doesn't know how to speak in English, and he gives a piece of paper to this taxi driver. And the taxi driver looks at the address and looks at him. They don't know what to communicate, and just gives a smile to his ride. That just kind of telling him everything will be okay. And just that eye-to-eye contact. There's no additional time on the taxi driver's part. And you may say that, oh, I'm a taxi driver, I cannot make any impact. But look, the situation. Let's look at the story as it unfolds. Their eyes connect, and the taxi driver smiles probably 10 to 15 seconds. And this gentleman just kind of feels like, okay, I've done the best I could. And he relaxes. He's flipping through his brief just for the last minute and just kind of closes his eyes and says, I'll share what has happened, that it was not in my hands. And then he gets off, and as he's getting off and he's handing the money to the taxi driver just reaches out and touches his arm and smiles again, waves, and just goes away. Now this gentleman goes and meets his Japanese counterpart, the leaders down there. He bows, and he has learned what to do, all the traditions and all that. And there's, of course, a translator, and he says what had happened. And the translator says, "Oh, we understand." And his calmness, because he was calm and he did not arrive frazzled, he was smiling, it had a really good impact on his Japanese counterparts that look at this guy. We are going to do business with this person. He's not frazzled. He's explaining it very calmly. And that's what the translator narrated back to this US executive, that your demeanor really helped my leaders be at ease with you.
Yeah.
That if any situations or problems or challenges come up, you'll be able to handle it.
Absolutely. Trust, right? Instant trust.
Yep. Trust, and he was able to close the deal. So that one smile could have an impact. So folks, that's what I say, that when we talk about the scale, you don't know the scale. And I always go back to the ripple effect. You take a tiny pebble. You may consider yourself as a tiny pebble on a sandy beach of a lake. But when you throw that pebble, those ripples have a far-reaching effect. Same thing if you look at the ocean. If there is just like that tiny wave coming in, but then in some cases that wave, depending on the circumstances, there's moon or gravity or whatever is going on, it can become a wonderful wave that surfers can ride and enjoy, and the impact can be beautiful. So never imagine that you cannot have meaningful impact. Even when you touch one person's life, you do not know what that one person is going to be able to do. So think about it. This one gentleman not only impacted the whole Japanese company, but the American company. So you're talking about hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So that's why when I talk about the depth, when I talk about the ginormous, I'm not talking about the wide, but I'm talking about a meaningful impact. It's about the depth. Because it's again like, whether you're snorkeling or you're scuba diving. And it's the same area, right? You could be snorkeling within, let's say, 500 feet of the ocean, and scuba diving is maybe you are just going down in that thing, but you're seeing different things. So it's the depth of it.
It's true. And we forget the impact we have with those around us. A simple smile sometimes is all that's needed. And now I want to go, that's hand to hand person, right? I see you, I smile, I hold the door for you going into the office building, whatever it might be. How can we make greater impact, or like you said, depth, even deeper depth with the technology now? Because we have technology that we have in our arsenal that we didn't have, maybe even 10 years ago. So how can we leverage that?
Well, it's so simple, so think about it, that you have technology, and so many times what happens is I will see these threads on Facebook, and somebody posts something, and then you post something, and then you see like, oh my goodness, this angry ranting going at each other, and just this divisiveness and just pointing fingers. So let's take a look in the corporate setting. So for example, sometimes you may have forum, or sometimes you may not have forum. So let's just kind of let's say you have a remote person that you're working with, and now they've not delivered, and they are not good at communication. Now, you're so upset. So in the heat of the moment, what you do is write all caps, and you go ahead and you type up something, and now this can never be retracted back. So not only you've upset that other person, and if that person takes that email and forwards it to your boss, then, what comes around is that, oh yeah, this person has an anger management issue, they need to go. So gosh, you leave footprints, folks. So it's not like you're a bird, you fly through the sky and there are no footprints. The key is that even with technology is to be a bird, and it's to reach those heights and fly, but without an imprint. When I talk about without an imprint, is that the impact is such, it's through heart. It's not about that social thing and all that. So what you can do is, let's say if a remote person is not coming in, find out who else that person is communicating with. Take a moment to deepen your learning about the other person. What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? What are the pains? And find out, is it possible that, so I'm just going to kind of give one example. So one of the corporate executives that I was coaching, he was very upset that this one person remotely did not respond. And of course, I went, oh, this outsourcing is bad and da, da, da. And he said that, Divya, I need to talk to you. And I'm so upset. Like, there's this piece that I need to turn in within the 2 days. And I said, how about let's just kind of explore the situation. And I asked him that, do you know what part of the world he lives in? He's like, I don't know. So what happens is that person has not even taken that step to know where the other person is. Our interactions are so transactional. And when you're operating in transactional field, folks, the other people will not do the things for you in the way they will do things if you're acting in a transformational space. So then I said, okay, let's take a look at if this person is working with somebody else. And he found out that, yes, he was working with somebody else. And then what was happening was there was typhoon going on at that time, so the internets were down, so he could not respond. And then this person, oh my goodness, his anger just deflated, like, sitting right across me, just deflated like anything. And so here's a person who maybe, be worried about their lives, forget about delivering things. So it's just kind of like, little things with the technology is that going beyond the technology. And technology, remembering the technology can be your ally, where what you can do is, like, if a person is not used to delivering things on time, you can just use the calendar, just create a task line. There is a system called Trello. And Trello is that where you can, then there is Slack. There are platforms, Slack, where, you're communicating with all the teams, so you don't have to apprise everybody 10 times. Everybody's on the same page, so you're able to communicate with them. And of course, it depends, what your company allows or not allow. But I'm sure there are different mechanisms. So Trello is just one of the mechanisms where you can create different boards for different employees. You can create for different clients. And you can have the boards where it says that, where you create a card where it says that, okay, these are the deliverables, and you're able to see it visually. So just kind of taking one step further and finding out, how is it this person operates the best? Is it through audio? Is it through visual? Is it through writing? And just finding that initial space in that, creating that, learning about the other person. It just takes probably like 15, 20 minutes that, hey, what's your preferred mode of communication? Just asking them. And what happens is that which way they prefer, and then you can use the technology. Some people don't understand then, like with some of my clients, I use mind mapping. And we'll design the whole project accordingly, and that's how the brain functions, and they're able to deliver a whole lot more and perform more. So just meeting people where they're at.
That's so true. And a couple of things you said. There's so much technology out there to help us communicate live documents, so that if there's 20 people working on a project, you don't have a stream of emails where everybody's responding to all. You have a live document, you're all doing your piece of the puzzle, and it's accountability, right? So everybody's accountable, everybody's transparent. Things happen. Bad weather, typhoons, whatever severe situations happening. We've all been on the receiving end of losing your technology and losing your mind because you're thinking, I have these deadlines, I had to call these people today, my cell is down, my internet is down, what do I do? How do I communicate? So we all go through, and we all have had that experience. So the other thing I love that you said is just take a breath, take a step back. And Divya, the other thing I've learned in my life is everybody is going through something. We all have lives outside of our professional whatever, right? But we have issues in our professional life that we have to deal with, losing jobs, whatever it might be. And on the flip side, we have issues in our personal lives, elderly parents, becoming ill, and now the burden is on you to help with that. A child getting sick, you as a parent, you're the breadwinner, you still have to juggle handling the young child, the hospital, whatever that looks like. Everybody we meet is dealing with some ordeal or some type of stress that hopefully they, or perhaps they keep it from us because it's private, right? Which is cool. But everybody's going through stuff. Everybody's got crap. So we think that, but it's true, right? We think that, oh, they have the perfect life. No one has a perfect life. Everyone's dealing with something. So before you open your mouth, from, like you said, the gentleman called you, he's not responding, I have this deadline. We go from 0 to 60 in anger instead of taking a breath and saying, what's really going on, and how can I perhaps help this person if there's a situation beyond his or her control. We immediately go from that anger perspective. We're an angry society. It's sad. It's just sad how we respond to things. We're out of time. Do you have any last minute, because you're full of wisdom, my friend, do you have any last minute, like a tip for people to just breathe and kind of step forward to make it, like I said, not transactional, but transformational? So do you have one more quick tip?
Take a pause. Just take a pause.
Yeah.
Because in that pause and that silence, you'll find gold, just pure gold.
It's true. It's true. And again, we talked about inclusivity a little bit and diversity. And where we live in the United States, there's quite a bit of diversity, which is awesome, right? So we learn about these cultures. It's an amazing place. I love living in New Jersey for that reason. Instead of looking at diversity and inclusion, I have a colleague, we were talking one day about disrespect in the marketplace. And I said, we're always going inclusion, diversity. How about if we start by saying, don't care male or female, don't care what nationality, no, don't care what religion you are, don't care what part of the world you're in. What do we have in common? And the irony, and I know you're a mom as well, the irony of people, humans, whether you have kids or not, we want a world of peace, right? If we do have kids, we want them to grow up happy and healthy and productive. If we have elderly parents, we want them to be safe and taken care of, right? And not be in distress or in pain. We all want the same things. We want a better life for ourselves and for our children. So instead of coming from this place of difference, why don't we start looking from a place of what do we have in common? And I think we could just get a lot more done by doing that. And I know you talk about that in your when you speak, et cetera, as well, Divya.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We are all connected by our hopes, our dreams, aspirations, pains, sufferings, challenges, folks, through humanity. And I always say that, look at the sun. The sun shines and there is no partiality, or how should I put it, that, oh, the sun is not for everyone. So just like the sun is for everyone, our dreams connect us together, and just being a human, period.
Yeah, I love it. I love that connectivity we talked about today. If you'd like more information, or if you'd like to have Divya come and speak at your organization, go to her website. It's, of course, www.divyaparekh, and I'm going to spell it Divya, and then P like Peter, AREKH.com. And then they could go /speaking, right, if they want to connect you, or just go straight to the website, Divya.
And they can definitely go straight to /speaking. The speaking is right there on my website, or either directly or go /speaking. Yeah.
Okay. And if you'd like to email Divya directly, do contact@DivyaParekh.com. And don't worry, guys, I will post that on the Web Talk Radio Enlightenment of Change platform. So you literally can click and it'll take you right to the email, or click and it'll take you directly to the website. Also, the book is on, you can pre-order it, right, Divya? So I will put that link.
Yeah, pre-order phase. Yes.
I'll put that link on the website if you guys would like to check out the new book, Expert to Influencer, How to Position Yourself for Meaningful Impact. And we all want to go from that expert to influencer. I think we want to change the world. Let's do it in a collective manner. If you guys need to reach me, please reach out to me directly at Connie@WhitmanAssociates.com. My partner and I still offering that free communication style assessment. We just updated the reports. So if you haven't checked it out, go to wisdomdecoded.com, and right on that landing page is the free communication style assessment. Check it out. Some pretty cool information. Divya, thank you so much again for being on and sharing that good to great, that pebble in the pond, and how we can create that ripple effect. It was very clear, and I hope helping our leaders make that impact not just to their team, but to the world. I think it's real important. So thank you again for being on. Always a delight.
Well, thank you, Connie, for having me. It was such a pleasure and honor to be with you.
It's always. I love having you on. You guys, I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that change is inevitable and change is necessary and change is actually easier than we oftentimes think, just based on our discussion today. So thank you for joining us today for the show. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I wish everyone an inspired week and try to do one kind thing every day and see how your life changes. Thanks, everyone.